Welcome back, everyone. Now, before we start converting our Crown Clothing application over to using hooks, there's just one quick thing I want to mention. And this actually has to do with the rules of writing these hooks. Now, as you remember from our use effect example in the last lesson, we did set a default search query to Brett. If, for example, however, we had a default search where it was an empty string, and we didn't want to make or fire off our use effect hook because search query did not exist yet, or at the very least, it was not anything meaningful, then perhaps we can think about a case where we only want to fire our effect where we actually perform the search based on some conditional depending on the length of the search query string. Now, you might imagine that if, for example, we say search query.length is greater than 0, then we actually want to use our effect. If you were to write the code like this, however, this is actually incorrect. You'll actually see that this error gets thrown and our linter will tell us that we cannot call use effect inside of a conditional. They must be called at the top level of our component, meaning that our actual hooks, including both our setState and our use effect hook, must be called at the very top of this component. But also, if we want to leverage a conditional, we should actually put it inside of the effect. So for example, what we can do with our use effect hook is add the conditional here where we actually say if search query.length is greater than 0, then we actually fire off the hook in itself. So this is the only case where if we ever have conditionals based on some prop or some state inside of our component where we want to conditionally fire the effect, we just have to make sure that we only do it inside of the hook. Now, we actually don't have an example like this inside of our application, but this is a good thing to keep in mind when writing hooks. So if you want to conditionally use a hook, make sure you do it inside of the hook's definition and not wrapping the actual hook itself inside of a conditional. It's just a quick rule, and you can actually see it in this link that I'll provide in your resources about hook rules. But this is pretty much the main rule about how to conditionally call your use effect hook. So with that in mind, let's move on with our course.